Perfetto, siamo online.
Good morning, everybody. Buongiorno. We have today to another meeting organized by UNESCO, Chair on Intangible Cultural Heritage and Comparative Law. This meeting is included in the weeks on sustainable development organized by all UNESCO chair in Italy. And today we have a great opportunity to have a very relevant guest speaker, Flora Igoe. She is the head of the Youth Cultural Program at the World Food Forum at the FAO, Food and Agricultural Organization, the Organization of United Nations that works in this field. And the topics of the today's seminar is Roots of Resilience, Intangible Cultural Heritage for a Climate Just Transition. As a director of the UNESCO chair, I have to tell you that we are honored to have the guest speaker, Flora, as a guest speaker, and also we decided to organize this meeting because we started to study the connection between ICH and climate transition several years ago, and we realized how is important this focus. So thanks to Sara Di Luca, she's the organizer of this seminar, and to the other discussants, today's discussant, Maria Elena Giappiassu Macedo and Tiago Burkhardt. Maria Elena, she is a PhD student at the University Federal do Paraná in Brazil, but she is also visiting researcher at the UNESCO chair on ICH. Tiago is a postdoc researcher in comparative public law at the University of Rome, Unitelma Sapienza. I really hope that he will join later. And without waste your time, I want to give the floor to our guest speaker. Thanks a lot for accepting our invitation. Thanks a lot for being today our guest speaker. Flora, please, the floor is yours.
To the chair for having me today. I'm delighted to join. And so today I'd like to share a bit about the work of the Youth Culture Program of the World Food Forum Global Youth Action Initiative and how we're working with intangible cultural heritage, specifically in relation to agri-food systems. But first, perhaps I will just take a step back and explain a bit about the World Food Forum and what it is exactly. So the World Food Forum was founded in 2021. It's a youth-led platform for transformation of our agri-food systems. Grazie, Sara. And it's working with both farmers, policymakers, youth across the board, and also young creative practitioners. So today we'll look into the work of the culture program, but here we can just see that there is a, sorry, there we go. Here we'll see the layout of the World Food Forum Youth Initiative. So at the top, we're split into 5 different teams. At the top, we have the Youth Assembly. The Youth Assembly is our main platform for structured participation in governments and policy processes for youth. And then beneath it, we have the Youth Innovation Program. So this is supporting young innovators through various programs with their incubator stage ideas and also right through to fully fledged startups. On the right, we've got the education program, and this is working with young educators to get agri-food systems transformation into curricula around the world. Then down below with the local youth action team, and they're providing platforms for young people across different countries. We are currently have national youth chapters in 62 different countries around the world. And this is providing a platform for youth to get involved in policy making on the ground and bringing our initiatives to local level. And that's really important for our work in ICH because it's ensuring that the work is from a bottom-up approach. It's involving communities and we're learning from them. And in the middle here, we've got youth culture. So youth is recognizing, the youth culture program is recognizing youth's role in safeguarding, renewing and adapting, and also promoting food heritage. When I speak about food heritage, I'm speaking about both tangible and intangible elements. So thinking of food heritage, tangible elements, we think about tools for farming, for cooking, ingredients used, prepared dishes, and then the intangible. So things like recipes, farming techniques, social rituals that surround food and agriculture. And this is coming up a lot in our work. We're seeing the importance of it. And that's why intangible cultural heritage is such an important topic for us. So here is just an overview of the national chapters. So there's currently 62. We hope to get to 100 next year. And on the next slide, I'm going to tell you a bit about food heritage at FAO. So thinking about what FAO is already doing. So in 2002, FAO launched its GIAS program, which is Globally Important Agricultural Heritage Systems. So what GIAS does is it identifies and safeguards traditional agricultural systems that combine biodiversity, cultural practices, and sustainable livelihoods. And when we think about food heritage and why it's so important to carry on and to protect, it's because food heritage is something that's being adapted to climate, to economic and social perspective over years, and it's creating a adapted and renewed resilience in agri-food systems. So ensuring that we protect this going forward, it also helps ensure that we have food security. And that is FAO's mission, is to achieve food security for all and ensure regular access to high quality foods for active, healthy lives. So with the GS program, there are currently 104 systems in 29 countries. So as you can see, it's very, very vast. There's lots of people involved. And there's also an overlap with the intangible cultural heritage lists. So for example, on tea culture, I've put some images on the right here. You can see 3 separate sites across Japan, South Korea, and China. And these sites are specifically dedicated to the safeguarding of cultivation, processing, and social uses of tea. So that's a bit what FAO is already doing. When we think of the youth culture program, the program is really recognizing how youth can play a part in this. And we know that youth are really essential for transmitting knowledge connected to our agri-food systems. And we also know that sometimes transmitting this knowledge can be done, it needs to be done in a way that resonates, in a way that's accessible and something that's going to be effective. So the youth culture program is really trying to create ways to transmit this knowledge and to safeguard it that are going to make it interesting for youth and also applicable to a global audience. So I'll bring you to, yes, so here we've got safeguard, revitalize. So by revitalize, I mean renew and adapt the food heritage and also promote. So now I'll just take you through a few examples of what the youth culture program is doing in each. So underneath safeguarding, a good example of what we're doing here is with our film initiative. So our film initiative is providing a platform for young filmmakers to document food heritage. So each year we have hundreds of young filmmakers that are applying for our film festival. We've got 5 different categories and winning prizes for each. And importantly, we're also bringing them to our flagship event, which is held every October, to bring them to a stage that's visible to decision makers, young people, farmers. So a lot of key stakeholders are seeing the food heritage that they're documenting in their films. We also do impact screenings throughout the year, so with cultural institutes, with FAO member states. And this is a way to really convince and transmit FAO's technical knowledge into something that's more digestible and resonates with a wide audience. So, for example, the best focus on biodiversity this year, the winning film was actually about tea cultures. So the film is called Mountain Mist and Tea, and it's by Han Hong Lao and set in Guizhou. And it's following two generations of tea farmers and about the importance of their ecological cultivation of tea. So it's following this story that's quite a nice, fun film to watch, but also it's weighted with really an important topic. So another point I wanted to make is that intangible cultural heritage, we're seeing it not just being about recipes or traditional farming practices, but also about the sense of identity that it creates and shared memory. So it's got an ability to connect communities and across geographies and also across generations. So I wanted to show a film trailer from the best fiction film that won this year. The film is called Sulamani, and it's by Vinyan Bose. She's an Indian filmmaker, and this film is set in Paris about two young women that are Indian, and they meet in an Indian restaurant in Paris, and a dish that brings back memories of their migration, of their food practices from home. And it's really a film that it's quite subtle, but you understand how ICH is important. So bring you to the next slide and try to play. Oh, perhaps it's not playing. If not, I will leave the link under the yes. Okay, sorry about that. I'll leave the link here so anyone watching can watch it later. And I recommend you do, because it's a lovely film to watch. So I hope you enjoy that. But yeah, basically the film it shows us it tells the story in a really nice and engaging way about food and how its migration plays a role also in heritage and how it's changing. So moving beyond safeguarding, I wanted to also think about how we're revitalizing, adapting and renewing food heritage. And one way we're doing this is through culinary practices. And this year we've launched our Young Chefs program. Here is just an overview of what's taking place. So the program will run throughout all of next year. And the aim of the program is to equip chefs with skills, knowledge, and then also the network to take a leading role in transforming agri-food systems through culinary practices. So basically, we're recognizing the important role that chefs play between producer and consumer, the amount of knowledge that they have in that role, and that they're able to transmit both ways on the supply and food chain. So this you see here under capacity development. So we're using FAO's technical knowledge, so working with FAO technical divisions to do a series of master classes to bring further knowledge to the chef on things like food systems, sustainable nutrition, and gender responsive approaches. And the chefs will also be paired up each with a mentor from the World Chefs Association. So they're able to put this knowledge into practice. Also, of course, advocacy is a very important part of it. So they'll also be guided on both online and offline public awareness campaigns, because in FAO's strategic framework, it's also very important that we're bringing knowledge to a public audience. And in this case, chefs are a really, really good way to do this. And finally, under local action, we are uh, ensuring that these projects are based from community level. So there's also the important knowledge coming in there. And each of the chefs are going to be launching a project around Sustainable Gastronomy Day, which is 18th of June. So that's also a really, really important factor. Another point to make is that these projects will be following the Global Youth Action Plan. So this is a document that is made by our Youth Policy Board. So they come under the Youth Assembly, which we saw earlier at the top of the diagram. And these are youth made policy priorities per region. So the chefs will know, okay, they're based in this region. What is the policy priority here for food and agriculture, and how can they incorporate it into their project? Then finally, just going on to the last part on promotion. So of course, promoting, I've taken it in a very literal sense here with all of the activities we're doing with our flagship event. So we are really happy to have the chair join us for the flagship event this year on our food heritage panel and also on our workshop on ICH. The flagship had 16,500 in-person attendees this year. So of course, it's a really great space to show this, show the work and to get more people engaged and involved. We also do a lot of promotion through music and art. So we had various cultural performances throughout the week. And also art installations and also cultural exhibitions. So we had ICROM join us with the Embassy of Ecuador doing an exhibition on cacao and origins as living heritage. And various other stakeholders and partners like Chefs Manifesto were there. And this is a really great way to get people's, as I say, policymakers, farmers, and many different, also government, their invested interest. So I have a few examples from this year. Each year we have a youth singer of the year, and this is another strong advocacy tool to get as many people interested as possible. So on our social media, we have some video blogs from the youth singer. This year, Sara Koricic joined us. She's an indigenous singer from Maya Kichitel, and she's from Guatemala. So she was singing about resilience and indigenous rights and also about a connection to the land. Then we had other artists from the Gambia, Rwanda, and Bhutan, and all of their performances were all connected to the ICH of agri-food systems. So, for example, Bhutan did a Boedra dance that's talking about rice cultivation. So this was also a very enjoyable way to get involved. And we thought of new ways this year to engage the audience more by having kind of questions asked to the artists before they perform, and they have a chance to speak about the significance of this dance, and then a QR code at the end to get people's feedback. And so that's been kind of a growing work on promotion that we're trying to make it as impactful as possible. Then for art, for the flagship event, we got involved with several partners. So Germany's permanent mission to the UN supported in having Joanna Dreyer, an artist from Berlin, show some of her work, where she's painting lots of vegetables, and we had them all over FAO. The General Fisheries Commission for the Mediterranean, they worked with Ali Eli, an illustrator, talking about sustainable fisheries. And also FAO China worked with a big exhibition that involved children in imagining a sustainable future. So we had 80 paintings from children talking about themes of biodiversity and climate resilience in a very relevant way. It resonated a lot. So yeah, that's really the three areas that we're working in. So the film festival, although it's also promoting, it's also providing a space to, if you like, renew and think about new ways for uh, intangible cultural heritage. But it's really a good system for documenting, whereas the culinary practices we see as a great way to work with FAO technical divisions and experts and also external partners to protect food traditions, but also see how we can renew them and make them resilient. And then finally on promotion, we see art and music and cultural performance as a really good way to engage people. That's in a nutshell, that's what we're doing at FAO.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It was super interesting to get an overview of all the work, and you're doing lots of things all together. Of course, like from the outside, sometimes it's hard to grasp everything. And I think it was like a great overview of all the work that you do. And yeah, like while listening to your presentation, like some question came to my mind on the culture program and on the work you do. And one thing that could happen when talking about, especially when you were talking about the Young Chef program, one thing that can happen when there's this kind of programs, let's say, trying to promote like a sustainable recipes and sustainable approach to recipes and cooking traditions, let's say. It could be, let's say, a clash between preserving the tradition and making it sustainable. And this came up to my mind also. It was a few days ago talking to a friend. She's French, and she was indeed saying, like, in France they have many traditional dishes which are meat-based, but now younger generation, of course, are trying to be more sustainable, eating less meat and everything, and they are replacing it, but they still consider them as as a traditional food, you know. So it's not a new dish. It's just the same, but with a sustainable alternative. So in their mind, still like the traditional food, but made sustainable. So I was curious to know whether in the program and also working with young people, whether there's this, of course, attempt to make it more sustainable, but whether they still think it's their traditional food, you know, like it's the food that the grandma was cooking or something.
Yes. Yeah, that's a really good question, because this actually came up recently. It comes up quite frequently, but during the World Food Forum flagship event, we had a side event in collaboration with FAO's division on food and nutrition. And in this event, we were bringing chefs. Some have agriturismo, and they're working with Mediterranean diet. And there was also nutritionists and people working in the nutrition division. So very technical and also a chef space, and there was also researchers there. And we had this conversation about, okay, sustainable diets, what is that? And helping ensure that moving forward, we are making them sustainable, but still reflecting on our traditions. And somebody actually said, okay, but what about, you know, traditional food? I see that as maybe some meat, exactly what my grandmother was cooking for me, and this is where actually the nutrition division came in and said, okay, this is where the technicality comes into it, because there's traditional food and there's traditional diet. And traditional food, when you look at it by itself, okay, you can have meat in some areas, very meat-heavy dishes. But what we're looking to preserve is and be aware of is a traditional diet. And a traditional diet is one that is incorporating many different elements and not just meat-heavy dishes. So it's really important that in everything we're doing and everything that we're advocating for, in every project that's set up, we make sure that we have a technical backing behind it. And that's where we, the Youth Culture Program, lean on the technical expertise of FAO and partner organizations to make sure, okay, you know, there's a responsibility when we're putting out a project and we need to, or a guideline, say sustainable gastronomy guidelines, we created last year in collaboration with the technical divisions, because we want to make sure that any project that's being launched, any idea that a chef has, they're able to have a conversation and a review from an expert. And we really hope that with the mentorship program, with the Young Chefs program, the fact that they each have mentors, that will help from a technical point of view, also economical, so they're you know, helped in their food business, and they're also connected with FAO work partners, technical advice. So, but that's something that comes up all the time, and it's an interesting one. Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you for the answer, because it's very interesting then to understand how these programs are then brainstormed at the back, and like which kind of support and technical support there's behind. And there was another question that came to my mind, which was like normally when we think about people working in restaurant, chefs, and all the people that work in this sector, let's say, normally you don't think about the richest part of a country. Let's say normally these kind of work are like low and medium paid, let's say, unless for like, except for some specific cases. And on these, I talk more like for personal knowledge of what's the case in Italy. Of course, like I don't have a global overview, but normally this can also produce a kind of a stigma, or like it can disincentivize young people to start this career, because maybe it's gonna be like a hard, it's not gonna be like well paid, and there will be like also some stigma on this. So whether through this program and also the other collateral, let's say, activities and events and programs that you organize, whether through these you saw like an increased interest of young people to build a career in these, to start working in these, and so to kind of deconstruct this kind of social stigma.
Yes, yeah. So that's actually coming up a lot from the chefs that we spoke with before launching the program. Also, the chefs that have been involved with us in the past. We've had a Sustainable Gastronomy Week celebrated for the past 2 years. So that's an initiative around Sustainable Gastronomy Day. And all are usually bringing up the same issue is at the end of the day, this is a job for them. And yes, they want to be sustainable. Yes, they care about these issues, but at the end of the day, it's also important their wage and how this affects it. So we've tried with the Young Chefs program to make sure we're covering this area by first having the mentors who are all culinary professionals. So I think one of the mentors has been working now 36 years as a chef and in culinary schools. So they've got knowledge that we might not have, so hands-on knowledge of working in a food business, what goes into that, and how to manage it also financially. And also we're trying to really understand, okay, so when we're talking, we have a masterclass on food loss and waste, and we're trying to frame every part of our capacity building around how do you incentivize chefs for this? What's the gain they're also going to get financially out of this? So when we think of food loss and waste, you can see that there is a financial gain, that when you're trying to avoid food loss, you're actually gaining from that financially. And I kind of thought, okay, you're gaining from it financially, but are you really? And I was a bit skeptical. And then after looking into it more and speaking with a chef friend who's based in Copenhagen, they told me about their communal eating spaces and how they were all needed to have organic produce and at the same cost. So I thought, okay, of course, this is probably going to bring up the prices, but actually the chefs were trained how to make more plant-based meals to be cost effective, and they managed to do it. So that was kind of a good example of how you can actually be more sustainable, to adapt and still be cost effective and have financial gains for chefs. Also, the aim of the Young Chefs program is first we wanted the chefs to be directly advocating with consumers, which they are, but we thought, how do we create the most impact out of the program? And we thought actually they should be communicating to other young chefs as leaders, so kind of leading in this, communicating to other young chefs who will also be communicating to consumers. So it creates this critical mass of the most impact. So I think by having these chefs as kind of leaders or good examples, I think it will incentivize other chefs, as it has for another initiatives.
Thank you very much for the answer. And I don't know if Lena wants to take the floor for some questions and thoughts.
Thank you, Flora. It was amazing to hear you talking and to get know more about the program. Thank you, Sarah, for your questions. I think I will start with one question that is related to what Sarah just asked. I'm a researcher of the intersection of authorship and traditional knowledge, and how this authorship can contribute for a cultural heritage of traditional communities. So what I think it's related to the question is that you mentioned the Young Chefs program, and I think chefs, when they just don't reproduce what, but they also bring something creative and original. So I was thinking how this engagement, personal work of the chef can better foster the community. So you just mentioned that they are kind of bringing some leadership. They are like models to be followed, right? So, and also Sarah mentioned about how can we kind of contribute for a sustainable change of something, of some tradition. And I think culinary and agriculture can be, it's also part of culture. So we always have to interpret culture as something that is dynamic, right? So it's nothing that change doesn't really mean not to continue a tradition, right? So I think this is very interesting. It was one of my questions. I think you can add about it. But then I'll just recapitulate some points that I want to highlight and know more, and then I give you back the word. But another thing that came to my mind is regarding the capacity building. Since I'm originally from this, I'm originally concerned with the intellectual property as well. I think I ask you if the program, when concerned about capacity building, is also concerned about like preparing the community to deal with intellectual property, because I think some issues of intellectual property might foster the community and the cultures as well. For example, preparing the community to register some geographic indication, or even recognizing some aspects of authorship, right? And I was curious when you showed the map of the program that I didn't see Brazil. So since I'm Brazilian, I was like, oh my God, where is Brazil? And I don't know. I don't know if you can mention why it's not there, and how can we look for a program. I would love to say to the community, look, you have this opportunity for capacity building, for fostering. And I also was very happy to see how the concern of the program goes, multiplies itself. Its main purpose is regarding the food security and sustainability, a way of dealing with something that starts in the agriculture field, but it also the economy and the social impact is much broader. So I think the way of safeguarding by, for example, promoting film festivals that this empower the community because they see each other, like the value of this, because sometimes if we don't realize we are doing something so interesting, this is a way of empowering, of sharing, also promoting, right? And the festivals that comes around it, for example, I remember I have a project that I'm involved with is in the Amazon at Rio Negro River, where they produce some small fishes, but and they have this traditional knowledge of cultivating these fishes, and is also concerned with sustainability because they just like fishes when it's the season for fishing, etc. Even export these fishes, and then at one time this economy was kind of reproduced by farmers. So when the farmers start cultivating the same fishes, the economy there in the Amazon started to decline. And these people that were involved in this traditional fishery program, they started migrating for cattle raising. And this started to have the contrary of benefits. It was starting to damage the nature. The community started eating more cattle meat instead of fishes. It changed a lot the perspective. So by introducing a geographic indication on this fishery, which has to do with sustainability, they added a differential of sustainability that for competing with the farmers, right? But what is curious is that this economy, after the geographic indication, they started migrating back to the fishery. That's a very good thing. It's beautiful. But all the region there lives towards this culture. So they have like second products related to the fishery. So the main product is the fish agriculture fishery. And then they have the arts related to the fishery, like they sell a toy with the fishes, and they have a whole festival, like a carnival, that one fish compete to the other, and they have like this amazing carnival. So I think you made me systematically think that with the examples you brought. Yes, that are my first comments and not really questions.
Thank you so much, Lena. That's really interesting to hear about that, because we always talk about, okay, think systematically, think about agri-food systems, but think broader. And it's really nice to have a concrete example of that. So thank you. And yeah, it's a really good point on. We also need to think about the potential dangers, the benefits, but also the potential dangers of nominating sites, whether it's GIAS, whether it's geographical indication, or the ICH list. So perhaps I'll just go back to your first point about the working with communities. So yeah, the Young Chefs program is a good example of that, because they'll be launching community-based projects. And by community-based projects, we are keeping it quite open to the context that suits the chef and their community. So we have some guidelines and also examples of what other youth from the World Food Forum's Youth Network have done. So whether it's the scientists we work with or the Youth Policy Board. But these will take the form of maybe school workshops or campaigns that collect local recipes. And we want to keep it flexible, because it should be coming from the community and not from us. And so, yeah, I think that it also, as you said, with the film festival, it's a way for people to see their own practices also reflected, and kind of an incentive to get involved. And I'm thinking now of a film festival that takes place in Cavan, where I'm from, in Ireland. And I remember going to this festival and seeing members of my local community on the screen and thinking, oh, wow, okay. And it was really a collective feeling being there. So I think that's a really powerful way to get people involved. Then, yeah, thinking about capacity building, that's a really important point. So actually, and this is something that we've had also the help of from discussions with the chair, like understanding the importance of participatory mapping. So first we need to understand the need of a community and the ICH that needs to be protected and safeguarded and promoted. And also giving the skills to individuals or community on how to map what this need is, and also how to work with it. So because I think when I was first starting on this work, personally, I was thinking a lot about, okay, capacity building. So we're coming straight in with capacity building, but first I'm understanding more and more the importance of involving individuals in the process of actually understanding what the need is first. And some ways that we plan to do this would be for, particularly through the youth networks, seeing how they can also be involved in nomination processes. So whether that's with maybe GIAS sites, and seeing how they can actually be trained and have the skills to identify what should be involved and nominated, and for them to be fully involved. Because yes, it's obviously very important that somebody in the community is doing it, but even more important that that person also is young, so that they can bring it forward and it can continue. Last point on Brazil, we're working on it. So I think very soon, I hope that we have one. And yeah, we also are really we like the idea of having many cultural initiatives within the chapters. So I don't know if anyone is watching and wants to set up a chapter in whatever country they're from, and put a focus on culture. That's great, because I think it's a really great way of also non-formal education, getting people involved through different ways. Like, for example, we are working with Bishop's University in Ontario, and Dr. Vivian Valencia is a professor there who has made something called the First Supper Framework, and it's looking at art, gastronomy, music, film, and other cultural practices as a way to get people involved in sustainable development. And now we're looking to tailor it to youth and to agri-food systems and women, because also I didn't mention before, but the World Food Forum Youth Initiative is based within the Office of Youth and Women at FAO. So we're not just working with youth, but also we've got a focus on women's empowerment. And of course, with agriculture, we see that very, very often women are the knowledge bearers within food and agriculture. So yeah, that's a summary, but if there's any more questions you'd like to add, please feel free.
Thank you, Sarah. Flora, I'm sorry. I prepared 2 questions concerning our cathedra, because we are UNESCO Cathedra on Comparative Law and Cultural Intangible Cultural Heritage. And one question is, as FAO and the program works around the world, if the frameworks, law frameworks of each country are facilitators or difficultators the practice of the program. For example, when you go to a country, if the framework of the law can be difficult for you, if you have a very good example or an example of country that maybe was a bit complicated. And the other final question is how, I don't know if the program has a dialogue with a program from UNESCO, or if you use some kind of patterns from UNESCO conventions on thinking about how to implement the program. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. So for the first question, I'm not sure I fully understood, but I think you mean in relation to the convention, if some countries are it's more difficult to implement the framework.
Actually, is when you implement the program, the strategies, for example, about the let's see, if some internal national law can difficultate the implementation of the youth program. For example, if you're going to do a movie there, the community is getting power, and then they don't have freedom of speech and they cannot say anything. So if national laws are different, and then if you have these difficulties to implement it, or if facilitators.
Okay, I get you, and actually that's a good question, because this is something that obviously we're thinking about every day, because we're working with many different partners and also member states. So it depends on what the initiative is, whether it's more grassroots or if it's like something that's feeding into national priority. So for 2 examples, say we want to do an impact film screening, and we want to do it in, let's say, Dublin, since we've done one in Dublin before. The great thing about the national youth chapters is that they are independent to the FAO. So actually, they're a group of youth that are following our work, but they're completely free to do as they like. So a lot of our more grassroots initiatives are carried out by youth through the national youth chapters. And it means that this is, their ideas are going into it, the community's ideas. It's very open, and for them to do what they want. And our role in that is providing a blueprint, say, for setting up an impact screening, for working with an artist maybe, or putting on an art exhibition, and we provide guidance on that, and then it's left for the youth to carry that out with not just youth, but young at heart as also, so all ages and people in the community to get involved. Then for more broader initiatives, if we want to do it on a nationwide, or we wanted to have an impact in national or even regional or interregional policy and priorities, we work with the member states and the FAO country offices. So so for example, if we're looking into a project with Morocco, we'll get in touch with the Morocco FAO office, our focal point there, and we explain the project, we get their backing. And I have to say, on everything related to ICH so far, we've had really positive support. We haven't met any barriers. The only thing that can be challenging is that it's something that has come into FAO's work naturally, because when we think of our agri-food systems, there's so much ICH connected to it. But really only it's come out through our GS program and now also in the work we're doing. So it's a very new concept and a new topic. So when you're providing, we usually provide a concept note, and when you're providing a concept note with an idea of a project you'd like to implement, sometimes you have to just go a little bit further to explain what intangible cultural heritage is and what it means. So that's the only challenge. But I have to say that it's something that is resonating a lot, and I can see it in a lot of conversations that are not based on culture, but I'm picking out, okay, what you're talking about this, and this relates to intangible cultural heritage. So generally, and luckily, it's been quite positive. We haven't met too many difficulties. Yeah.
So maybe just to conclude, I have one last question that came to my mind. It's more of a takeaway for us and like an advice from your side, let's say. The World Food Forum is quite recent, right? Like it was born in 2021? Yeah, okay. So it's just 4 years, which is a lot, but compared to the 8 years of FAO, it's like it's a young program. But like now talking as a participant when I came, it's incredible to see all the participation of people and young people and involvement that you managed to create through all the different, of course, teams. How did you manage to make it such a grassroots program with youth engaged? Of course, you know, being in FAO, which is a UN organization, is part of it, but I'm sure like there was like some strategy behind, like, so somehow a takeaway from us of how to make program really impactful and really grassroots. Because I think this was really something that, stuck to my mind in a sense when participating.
Yeah, so it is a very young program, and when it was launched in 2021, it was during COVID, so everything was online, and actually the team was very small at the time, and they expected maybe a couple of hundred would join online for this flagship event. And in the end, 20,000 people joined online for the event, and they thought, okay, this is getting a lot of attention. And I think for one reason is because there's a need there. So I think youth are really aware of this like very urgent work that needs to be done for agri-food systems, and agri-food systems makes it sound a little bit kind of distant, but when you think of agri-food systems, it's the food we're eating, it's how we're even socializing over food, it's all the documentaries we've been seeing on the food system. So it's very, I think many young people are concerned and want to take part. And then the second reason, I think, is because it's very easy to get involved. There's these national chapters, but also it covers quite a range of entry points. So whether you're interested in policy and you're joining the the youth assembly team, or you're working in education and you want to join through the education program. You've got a startup through innovation, or if you're a filmmaker, if you make art, you can come in through the culture program, or if you're just a general interest, you don't have to be in any of these groups. So I think it's very accessible. And also the fact that it's with, it's so strongly supported and within FAO, that is also kind of really important to ensuring that it's backed up with technical knowledge and there's support for youth to not just get involved, but also be kind of mentored and followed along the way.
So to make youth active and join the table of the decision makers somehow. So yeah. Well, thank you very much. I don't know if no more questions. I think it was super, super interesting and very valuable to have you here to dig more into the work of the World Food Forum and the whole office, and also to have it recorded so it stays there and people can watch this seminar, let's say, and get inspired, get information. So yeah, thank you very much. And also to Maria too, to come here.
Yes, thank you, Maria. I didn't introduce you earlier. I wasn't sure if the camera was just there or not, but we're also joined today by Maria Tussar, who's working on the culture program. Thank you, Maria too.
Thank you.
And thanks for having me join.
Of course. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.